And my guess is I could get at least 1 million people into the theaters, 2 million people in the theaters on the opening weekend. I wouldn't need any more to make the money back, right?
That's right.
I mean, I know the dynamics. I'm not doing it to make a fortune on it. I don't need the money, and I'm not looking to become a movie star. I just want to counter the culture. That's a good line. I just want to counter the culture. That is a nice line. I'm sorry to, editorialize on myself. I'm starting to think an opening scene could be me doing the 2-character dramatic scene of me and God. Sitting in a chair. I've had this thought in my mind for years that the movie opens with me in I've had it since boyhood, because I remember, I go back a long time, and one of my favorite setups in a movie was a storyteller in a chair. He's sitting in an armchair, older guy, and he's telling a story about something he went on in a jungle somewhere. And then all of a sudden, the music, and it flashes to the jungle. And then you're in the jungle, and then intimately it comes back to him in the armchair in a club where he's telling the story to a friend, so-called. And it's back and forth like that. I always loved that because it drew me into the movie more so than overly dramatic or pyrotechnics, that kind of thing. So I'd like to open it with me in an armchair, hopefully not in a wheelchair, talking to the audience. And I'll maybe reading from a book, reading from my own book, reading from God Says There Is No Time, the whole thing is all a racket, there's no time, clocks have no meaning. Dolly was closer to the truth, they're all bent, then go right to the Dolly clock. And then I continue talking because the hands move but nothing else moves. See, here's what it is, Savage. You're going to be reborn again in the same hospital in the year you were born, to the exact same parents, and you're going to go through the same life again. Michael Savage, who's now dead, says, no, I don't want that. God says, why? It was so bad? You want me to make you a bug? No, says Savage. But do I have to do the whole thing all over again? The meatballs on the wall, the whole thing, the fights in grade school, love by the sewer plant, the nympho in Alley Pond Park, affirmative action, the radio career. God says, why, that wasn't good enough for you? Would you like something else? Savage, no, God, I'll take it. That's a heck of a great opening to a movie right there. I didn't even know I had done that little thing. So I'm getting excited by my excitement. Excitement feeds excitement. I am so glad I'm getting callers today who actually read books, watch films, know films, understand radio, understand art, understand science, understand poetry, understand music. Thank you. Los Angeles, Chris, welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Mr. Savage. I just wanted to remark. I wasn't sure. I thought you might have been influenced by a book that is really, I think, has a narrative that's almost identical to your radio narrative. It's called Manhattan Transfers, written by John Dos Passos back in the 1920s, I believe. And I read this book several years ago, and listening to you, it really brings it back a lot. I mean, it was a little earlier time than you relate back to, I think, in the 50s, but very, very
well, I know Dos Passos in name only, certainly in my readings of Hemingway in that period. There were mentions of Dos Passos, but what is Manhattan Transfers roughly about, if you can put it in those terms?
Well, it's similar almost to kind of a stream of consciousness writing, but essentially it's observations of him in New York in the 1920s, and just kind of, very similar to the way that you kind of offhand just commentate and kind of just go.
Well, let me tell you, now you're on to something that I want to talk about. Whoever can name the originator of the stream of consciousness form in literature will win a free prize today. You may know who did it. I'm going to give you a hint. It was an Irish writer, and approximately the 16th century. Do you happen to know the name?
I thought it was Samuel Beckett.
No, he was one of the latecomers. There must be somebody out there who knows what the stream of consciousness. What do you do in L.A., my friend?
Oh, well, I run a little business here, sort of like a travel agency. But
are you allowed to listen to me without the thought police of West Hollywood coming down upon you and turning off your gas and electric?
Yeah, I listen to you every day. I listen to you online, but
do I remind you of one of your relatives from New York who you never met?
I think like a lot of guys, you're right. Remind us of our parents. Of a little bit more of a common sense era.
That's interesting. Okay, that's good enough. I'll take it. I'll take that role. That's okay for me. I'll enjoy that role. Just let me be, okay? Don't kill everything. Don't crush the bluebird.
Savage. Michael Savage. Afternoons 3 to 7 on Talk 910 KNEW and online at 910KNEW.com.
Johnny Rivera.
we're the men of Texaco. We work from Maine to Mexico. There's nothing like this Texaco of ours.
Turn it off already. I lost interest in it. Tippy dies and is thrown into a garbage truck. Is on page 21 of Psychological Nudity, Savage Radio Stories. It's actually a good story. So I could do anything you want. I can read from that. I can read from my first autopsies. Would you believe that I actually liked Walter Cronkite? And I read from it a day before he finally went to Hades. Do you remember that? Amazing what a sixth sense I have. I got a winner. I got a winner in Maine. And if you just tuned into the Savage Nation, we were talking about the portrait of Michael Savage in the New Yorker and how important it is to me for so many reasons, and how ironic that an organ of the liberal establishment would see the complexity and depth of me, while the rigid, fraudulent organs of the right, do I need to name them? Because they're basically all of them in the mainstream. The rigid, fraudulent organs of the right, those that wrap themselves in the flag but really aren't really about the flag, they're about something else, pretend I don't exist. I thought it was very, interesting. So then we talk, a guy calls from L.A., and he says on the show, you remind me of this, you remind me of that. And he says, your style is more like a free associational. And I said, do you know who developed the free associational style? And he mentions a name. And I said, no, it's a 16th century Irish writer. And I said, whoever gets the name wins. Chris in Maine is the winner. No further calls on this topic. Chris, go ahead. Who was it who invented the free associational style in literature?
It was Lawrence Stern with The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy.
Amazing. How did you know this, Chris?
In another lifetime, I was really into literature.
Well, don't laugh about it, because very few people would understand what that sequence of books was about. I mean, did you ever read it yourself?
I tried to several times.
Right. Look, it's stilted. The dialogue is out of date. It's very hard to read. It's good to know about. I remember scanning the book when I first found out about it, which was only 2 years ago, incidentally.
I did manage to get through Faulkner stuff that was like that.
Oh, I could never read Faulkner. Truthfully, it's like I knew I should, and I heard he was great. I found him boring, impossible to read.
It's
Tristram Shandy. It's interesting. Tristram Shandy. It's so Gaelic, it's hard to even say the words right.
Right.
I mean, what you want to say is Tristram Shanty, but that's not how it's pronounced. It's Tristram Shandy.
Uh-huh.
Tristram Shandy. It's basically he starts on a journey. He goes to London. He walks through the streets, and he's talking about I'm making something up. I'm on my way to the club. On the way to the club, I go down a side alley. In the side alley, I meet a woman. The woman is a lady of the night. The lady of the night takes me upstairs. We go upstairs and we do our thing. While I'm up there, I see a lamp. The lamp falls on the floor. I go to the glazier. At the glaziers, I'm attracted. But you know what I'm saying? It's like that. Whatever came to his mind, he wrote. That was called free association. Chris, I'm going to send you a book that's not free associational on that level. It's much more understanding. It's called Psychological Nudity. I'm sure you're going to enjoy some of the stories. My Silent Brother, The Electric Blue Saddle Stitch Pants, etc., and Fat Al's Tuna. I remember working on this last summer, how hard that was. Michael Savage. Did anyone notice that I did a sagittal section of my brain? I had a CT scan earlier that year. Instead of putting an orthophoto on the inside flap, I thought it was very clever. It was unnoted by most people. I took one of the sagittal sections from the CT scan, which if you look at it, it looks like a smiley face with fat jowls. And I used that as my author photo, and I said the author's brain exposed. It was clever. I mean, the liberal had done it right away. Oh, how clever. Oh, genius. How did you innovate that? May we have you on PBS? Oh. So what do you want to talk about in the Savage Nation? Books, movies, Obama no good. See what happened? Aide resigns on michaelsavage.com from the New York Post. Aide resigns after calling President Odumma. Why? Don't we live in a free country? You can't call a president dumb? I mean, the guy needs a teleprompter. We know he's a president on training wheels. Why must we worship this man? You know, this is frightening when you read that an aide to Manhattan's borough president has resigned after reportedly posting comments on her Facebook account criticizing so-called Harvard scholar Henry Gates Jr., a scholar. Now, you call that scholarship? I got another word for what he writes, but it's not scholarship. But anyway, you're telling you don't live in a free country? You can't criticize somebody? You have to resign because you call them Obama? Let me explain something to you. I was watching a show last night about military history. My favorite channel is military history, about my top next to the Weather Channel. But at night I like to watch military history. So last night was about Allied bombing campaigns of World War II. And then there was the horrific bombing of Dresden, the firebombing of Dresden, which, you know, the liberals wring their hands over, trying to make our troops into Nazis. You know, everything the Americans did in World War II that was heroic and noble, that these guys wouldn't have had the nerve or the guts to do. They would have probably gladly gone over to the Nazis to be able to continue another day in their lifestyle. So they firebombed Dresden. Now it's controversial. I mean, they killed a lot of people. They burnt the city to the ground. The bomber command said that it was surrounded by military targets.